Hey, welcome back, YouTube. I just got done making a bow for a good buddy of mine, Cecil Corder, and I'd like to show it to you. It's a European longbow. This is going to be a Viking bow from the 9th century. So let's check it out. So the back of the bow, one thing you can see real quick is the back of the bow has these flared nocks, and it just has a side knock on one side, and I did them on opposite sides, both top and bottom of the bow. So there's a little pin knot right there. If I angle this, maybe you could see how shiny some of that, how glossy some of that finish is on it. And this is just linseed oil finish. There's some more pin knocks right there, and you can just, and there we go down to the bottom with that side knocked on the other side, and you can kind of see how glossy some of that finish is, and that's just linseed oil, just natural boiled linseed oil. And I don't know, whenever I look at the back of the bow, it always intrigues me because that's the wood right there. And it's funny because each layer of wood is not even to itself. It could be thick and thin and do all these different things. So if you have a nice straight piece of wood but you got to go down in it a little ways, you could end up with a different shape by the time you get down to the growth ring that you're wanting to go through. So one challenging thing that I had to go through on this was these rings are super fine on this bow, and let's actually see if we can, there you go. See the top rings in the white wood right there, that sapwood? You can see how thin those are. Well, there was damage in the bark, and where some piece of steel or something came through, or a rock hit it or something, and there was some damage in it, so I had to keep on bringing it down to get it to that level. And that's always challenging. With yew wood, it's always very nice being able to just scrape off the cambium layer and just go with that first set of rings on the outside. So if let's look at the side of this bow, and I'll start off on this side. Let's look at this. So here's a side. You can see how flared out that that knock tip is. They're 3 inches back, and you can see that sapwood to just the rest of the wood of that bow. You know, I kind of like these areas that are just so different right there. And you can see there's the other flared tip. So this is actually how they're made. And if you look at old tapestries or old, there's some stone engravings, you can actually see that those were actually bent back. And more and more people are starting to look at these old paintings, tapestries, wood carvings, stone carvings, and different things, and they're starting to realize that the people who were doing the artwork actually really knew what they were looking at, and were actually looking at it and copying it down. They weren't just coming up with their own designs. And we know this because more and more we have people discovering sites and excavating them and finding remains of bows or different artifacts that are exactly the same as the way in which they were portrayed in many of those old types of artwork. So that's pretty exciting. So bows have been, and many times these tips right here were actually bent back towards the archer, and some of them were left straight, some of them were bent back, but they really don't know what they were used for. But I'll tell you one thing, they make really good handles, and that's what most of the people, when they're bracing their bows, and I'll show you right here, when you're bracing your bow, it's so easy. I like this method with this style of bow. You can just push it up and it's braced, but you have this whole top that you can actually push on, and with your fingers underneath actually release that and pull that back. So this bow has a 6-inch brace on it, and you have a good amount of feathers in between your fletchings. So it has a 6-inch brace on it. There's the bow. right there. The bottom knock, the gentleman I'm making this for, he wanted something real easy to use. So a lot of times these bottoms did not have the knock on them. They actually were just tied, and were tied onto there permanently. So what I did was I made a knock on there, and then used a bowline knot to actually attach and make a permanent loop that's easy to adjust. And that's the great thing about bowlines. You can always loosen that knot. They don't cinch down forever tight. A hatchet tight, where you got to take a hatchet to get the knot out of the rope. And then I just wrapped the rest of this around and tied it off to make it look like how they used to tie them. So there we go, right? Babbling. So this bow is 40 pounds at 40 pounds at 28, not 38. 40 pounds at 28 inches. But this bow can be pulled back all the way to 30 inches. And I made sure it could be pulled back that much further. So you have some extra poundage in this if you want to pull it back. And yeah, oh, here we go. This is cool. I like this. Here, let's do this real quick. Here, let me show you something. So he had a Viking symbol that he wanted me to copy on the bow. And actually, if you look at this, standing up, this is supposed to have a trident going through it on both sides, but his name starts at the C and his last name starts with the C. So I left a C on this side and a C on that side. One's backwards. So then I'm going to put the bow pull weight at how far on this rune symbol. This is a Viking rune or a European symbol. They changed during different times. Some of them were actually like a Z. But this is actually the tree of life. It's actually represents the yew tree, which this piece of wood is yew. So, and then right here there was this little remaining growth ring right here that perfectly resembled a fish, and that Celtic salmon or trout is a symbol that actually carved into the top of my workbench, and my kids ended up making me a maker's mark out of it for stamping in knives and metalwork and everything like that. So it's kind of became my maker's mark. So I actually ended up burning that into the bow just as, you know, I made it. So I've always really liked that. So nice personalized bow for him. So I don't have actually any arrows that would be historic arrows for the style of bow this is, but an English arrow would look something more like this. It has a knock, it's reinforced with horn, and then it's got the fletchings, and it's got wrapped in between and glued, and it's just got a shaft with a bodkin point on the front. This wouldn't be typical of those time periods. This is a more modern one. It's an easy hot glue onto the end of the shaft. So it's a manufactured one. But the rest of the arrow would be typical for what would have been shot out of these longbows. So I hope you liked the video. I hope you enjoy the content. If you can, give me a thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comment section below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to subscribe, and you never know what's going to come up next. So, thanks again for watching.